Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and good morning. A couple of months ago, I sat down for lunch in Doha with my new friend, Imam Abdelhamid. During the Multi-Faith Neighbor Conference, we learned about one another's stories and what inspired us to serve our faith communities. Conversations have been fascinating and illuminating. His upbringing had been so radically different from my own, and I was delighted to hear his stories and learn about how he saw the world. When the conversation veered into politics, I took a deep breath. While there are areas in which we're aligned politically, there were a few notable exceptions, issues of consequence, on which both of us are passionate, but held antithetical beliefs. I wondered how this conversation would go. Would this be where our relationship broke down? How could we respectfully disagree? This week's Torah and Haftarah portions grapple with this very question. In our Torah portion, Korach feels that Moses and Aaron are not doing a good job leading the Jewish people to the Promised Land. Frustrated by their years of desert wanderings, he gathers Israelite leaders to complain about them. He tells them that Moses and Aaron believe they are better than everyone else and convince them to rebel against their nation's leaders. Korach does not speak to Moses directly. And when Moses attempts to hear them out and have a reasonable conversation, Korach's followers, Datan and Abiram, flatly refuse. The result is tragic. As a nation is torn in two, several people lose their lives, and relationships are deeply severed. Korach is a cautionary tale of what happens when we talk around each other, fail to hear one another, and treat one another with respect. All around us, we see instances of such discord. We see it in the hateful comments that people offer under the anonymity of social media. We see it in polarizing political discourse and cancel culture, and the generalizations and accusations made of various groups without the courtesy of asking them their perspectives. In a social environment like ours, it can be risky to talk about politics, especially when two people disagree. As I sat with Imam Abdelhamid, I wanted to beat the odds. I asked him what led him to his conclusions and listened intently to what he had to say. I asked questions, and although I adamantly disagreed, I understood him. To my delight, he did the same with me. He listened, he reflected, he came to understand better where I was coming from as well. We left lunch that day filled with a more profound respect for one another and a renewed passion for partnership. We had learned that we could respectfully disagree. Respectful disagreement requires two parties who are both interested more in their relationship than in being right or convincing the other to agree with them. And that is what happens in this week's Haftarah portion. Samuel is distraught. Like the leaders before him, he is a prophet-like figure. He's a judge. He served the community amicably, showing devotion to God and to his people. When the people face an outside threat, they demand that a monarchy be erected. In his old age, Samuel is coming to the end of his role, and they believe only a monarch can lead them into the future. Samuel feels like this is offensive not only to his leadership, but also to their true king, God. Unlike Korach, he does not avoid conflict. He leans into it. He hears the people's concerns. He expresses his deepest concerns and is hurt without the expectation that he will change their minds. He takes the time to think about what is best for the Israelite people, not what he wants. In the end, he agrees to anoint Saul as king. He picks a place for the occasion that reminds them of God's ultimate sovereignty. He offers words of wisdom and hopes that they will learn from past mistakes and remain faithful to God. But none of this would have been possible. None of this would have been enough to create an amicable, respectful parting of the minds. The Israelites also took the time to hear Samuel, to acknowledge what a great leader he had been and to heed his advice. They disagreed and always would, but their relationship remains strong, much more robust than it could have if either party had kept silent. The story about Samuel is the perfect pair to our Torah portion. It illuminates what Korach alone could not. The disagreements are not only inevitable, but also necessary for creating honest and respectful relationships. Respectful disagreements have become all too rare, but as Samuel teaches, they are both possible and desirable. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.